right now, let's go to Daniel Jeremiah, our friend, who's kind enough to join us and chat a little football, talk a little draft. Daniel, how are we doing? How are we?
I'm doing great, man. The Padres only lost by 13 yesterday. Technically, we were right in it.
Did you watch that game?
No, I had to do my media conference call, so it's kind of like my craziest day of the year. So it's like a 2-hour conference call where I'm just fielding questions. And then I knew that the game was playing. I'm like, you know what? Perfect. I'm going to finish this call. I have a little break before I got to do total access. I'm going to flip on the game. I'll miss an inning. I'll probably miss an inning.
No.
At the end of the first inning, it was 8-0.
Yeah.
I was like, they didn't even let me have one inning of joy this year. Not even a single inning.
It's not even really their fault. That Dodgers lineup is just so stacked. But that's a story for. What was the most common question you got on the call? Out of curiosity, what were people most interested in?
Everybody just kind of wants to know their team and who what their team's going to pick. You get a lot of college questions, so a lot of college people on there just tell me about the Michigan State kids or what have you. So there was I wouldn't say there was a repeatable thing. I love it because over the years it's changed where you used to do this call and nobody was familiar with any of these guys. Like this was the time of the year where they're like, okay, I guess the draft's coming up. Like who's in the draft now? It's become kind of a year-round thing, and people have their entrenched opinions. So it's like, tell me why I'm right about this player.
I want you to do the opposite, actually. I'd like you to tell me why I'm wrong about a player.
Okay.
So
okay.
I've become a little fascinated with J.J. McCarthy recently, and I want to give you full disclosure. As you probably know, I'm not the college football aficionado that Brock is. I'll watch a few games here and there, but Saturday's sort of my day off during the football season. And so the only McCarthy games I really watched were the 2 playoff games this year. And I came away thinking, that guy's not an NFL quarterback. He just doesn't have the arm. He doesn't throw it on 3rd and long. He's not going to be able to throw from the pocket. And then Joel Klatt was so mean to me and was like, you're an idiot. You should have watched the Ohio State game. You have no idea what you're talking about. And now I'm looking at all these numbers and that show that he did do quite a bit on 3rd down. And he was great when he was out of the pocket, throwing the ball on the run, etc. Should I or should I not be obsessed with J.J. McCarthy?
I would say don't be obsessed with him. I would say he's not an easy evaluation. I used the phrase that he was an acquired taste for me because, like you, I think some of my biases just from watching TV was like, okay, he's just kind of a member of the team here. He's not driving anything with this team. It's defense and the run game and Harbaugh and the toughness and all that stuff. And then when you dig in and you start watching, you got to watch a lot more tape to see it just because the volume's not there that these other guys have. But you go back, you watch Ohio State games the last 2 years, you look at even just making plays on 4th down when you've got to have a play. He makes plays. He does, in my opinion, he has a live arm. He can let it rip. You'll see those instances the more you watch of it. So I kind of explain it this way. I have a car out front. I'm sure the car probably goes 120 miles per hour. I don't know what a car goes, but I don't really drive over 75. But just because I don't drive it over 75 doesn't mean it's not capable of doing that. So he just wasn't asked to do it is what I'm getting to. And I think if you're looking for what type of quarterback he can be, in frame athleticism and kind of decision-making, never getting bored with completions, he kind of reminded me of Alex Smith a little bit.
It's interesting, as you were talking, a lot of those were descriptions we gave of Russell Wilson for so much of the time that he was here, right? Oh, it was just the defense and it was just the running game. And, Russell obviously kind of complemented all that really well and then showed off the arm on the deep ball. But Alex Smith's not a bad comp either. That guy was the number 1 overall pick and had some pretty good playoff, teams once the Harbaughs got to him and kind of, transitioned him to being a better player.
Yeah, and I think there's a deeper discussion, a longer discussion too on this is something that Orlovsky and I talk about all the time when we chat. Is I think with any of these young players, I don't care how talented you are, like it's a mistake to bring a guy in and say, you know what, we're going to throw it 40 times a game, and we're going to ask you to quote unquote play quarterback 40 snaps. Whereas, in other words, the guys that are successful, even you watch Mahomes, even at this stage of his career, is the best player on the planet. Andy Reid, if he's going to say he's going to throw the ball, 28 times, 25 times, Andy Reid gives him 10 completions. Like there are 10 combinations of screens, quick screens, a screen to the back, a shovel pass to the tight end, a speed shovel. that you start with 10 completions. Then he's going to ask him to make, hey, run around 5 to 7 times, just use your athleticism to make plays. And then I need you to play, quote unquote, quarterback 12 to 13 snaps a game, where you've got to sit back there, get from 1 to 2 to 3, read the defense, see the late movement, and, really, really play the position. I think that you've got to protect whoever this young quarterback is that you can.
That's a fascinating way of looking at it. And then, add to that the running game, right? I know it was Brandon Staley's kind of been taken out of favor because the last year or two didn't go so well in with the Chargers. But I remember him saying a few years ago that he'd like to run the ball to give the quarterback some plays off so that they didn't have to use their brain during those plays and just kind of allow them to catch their breath again before they have to do what you just said.
Yeah, and that's why, you break the huddle, and I know that I've got a tunnel screen called, it doesn't require a lot of brain power. It doesn't require a lot of mental energy. It is, even there's ways to have passes that feel like you get the play off. Whereas, and I'm not going to, people, when I use this example, will say you're trying to excuse a terrible evaluation. I'm not going to say, obviously I missed on Zach Wilson. I had him too high. He did not work out. But I felt like when I watched him play, I was like, they're asking this poor kid to play quarterback 35 snaps a game. He has no chance. There's nothing. There are none of those mental breaks for him. So that's kind of an example of how probably not to do it.
You think McCarthy's around at number 16?
I'm fascinated to see picks 6 and 8. I think that'll tell us everything, because I do think at the end of the day, I think we end up having quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. So then it's a matter of who the fourth quarterback is. I know a lot of people I talk to view him as that. And then you go, okay, well, for the Giants being at least intrigued by quarterbacks as an option, and the Falcons, by all accounts, everything I've heard is, they really want a young guy, even though Kirk Cousins is kind of a popular name to put there. You just kind of hear stories. You talk to people who are connected to the interview process for the coaches that they interviewed, and kind of the conversations that were had. And one of the pieces of feedback I got was that they would like to find their Matt Ryan, somebody that can man the position for the next 10 plus years. So if a quarterback gets by them, then I think you see that maybe becomes a possibility, but you still have landmines with Minnesota and Denver. So there's just a lot of quarterback teams this year, and we'll see what the free agency market does to at least fill a couple of those chairs.
Well, yeah, and then you get to what the Seahawks actually do with the pick, right? So I know you switched your Seahawks pick from the last draft to this one. You went from Fautano to Byron Murphy. Let's start with that evaluation. Why the switch?
Is boredom an acceptable answer?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I would go with clicks. You need clicks.
Yeah, clicks. There you go, clicks. Dude, I could literally just go to the UTEP roster page and just put all UTEP players in a mock draft. It would still get clicked. No, but Byron Murphy's, he's gonna. You'll see him at the combine. He's probably gonna run in the 4.8 at 305 pounds. A little bit shorter, but he is very dynamic. He's the best defensive tackle on tape in this draft. So a really, really disruptive, strong kid. So that's why I kind of looked on that side of the ball. They've got some young pieces I like on that defense, but just continuing to add up front, I think would be a nice fit.
If you were them, if you're Seattle and J.J. McCarthy is still there at 16, or maybe it's Bo Nix, would you be tempted, or would you say, no, we're good with Geno for at least another year. It's time to just add on one of the two lines of scrimmage?
I would, it's a great question. I would say with where I have them right now, that would be it would definitely be a conversation. It would be a discussion, but I always, I would look at it and say, am I confident this is a clear upgrade over what you've had in Geno over the last couple of years? And I would say at this point in time, I couldn't answer that. That with I'm very confident this is an upgrade over what we already have. And I think Geno's quote unquote window is still open, or you still have some good football you can get out of him. I think I would probably go to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, this has led me to kind of try to figure out, if I'm the Seahawks and I got a new coach, and he wants to, run a Harbaugh style, a Buffalo style. He wants to run it. He wants to be physical in the line of scrimmage. They're not looking to open it up and throw it 45 times a game, is at least our assumption of the way this thing is getting built. And you probably haven't spent a lot of time on the Seahawks over the cap page looking through where their money has been spent, but it's 3 safeties in the top 8 plus.
Yeah, yikes.
Yeah, right. Plus a tight end in Will Dissly, who has not done as much in the last couple of years, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, and Dre Jones. And I look through that roster and say, if I want to change the way the roster is constructed, and I only have that number 16 pick, no second rounder, and then a couple of thirds, am I looking to trade DK Metcalf and see if I can add a whole bunch more picks to try to change this thing?
It's interesting that you phrased it that way, because I don't know if you've seen it, but if you go through all my social stuff, we've had a cool project we've done. We haven't posted the NFC West yet, so when we do, it'll probably be good fodder for you. But I had talked a while ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I was just kind of thinking about like a foundation of a team and what it takes, like the key foundational pieces. And so it came up with a quarterback. 3, you need to have a great team for the foundation. You need a quarterback. You need 3 offensive playmakers. That could be a combination of a running back, tight end, receiver. Could be 3 receivers, but you need 3 playmakers. You need 3 above the line quality offensive linemen. Then you need 2 pass rushers. Could be inside, outside. Mix and match. And then you need 3 playmakers at the second, third level combined. So you kind of take all these teams and you take the guys who fit in there. And then we had, the NFL research did it. And they pulled all the contract information. So, in other words, like, who are the guys that are under control that are going to be a part of this nucleus for the foreseeable future at those spots? And it's interesting when you look at it, because it's not a mystery. Like, the great teams have a lot of quality, above the line players at those positions. And you can look at some other teams who've struggled, who have great players on their roster, but they haven't necessarily invested that money in the right spots, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. And that's actually why I kind of got into this DK thing. And I appreciate you not laughing at me like most of the audience has over the course of the last 10 days or so.
Yeah, I mean, just Joel's a jerk, okay?
Well, yes, that's true. Yeah, which is why I always remind Brock that Joel's the number 1 Fox college football analyst. Brock's number 2. I mean, nice guys finish last, as you know. Joel's kind of a jerk. Brock's very nice, so that's why things work out. But
where does Petros fall in all this?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know Petros as well, so I can't put him. I know. I told you I'm a money guy. I know Matt but Petros I don't know as much about. So what do you think DK's worth if you were to try to trade a DK Metcalf? You think you get a first-round pick or more?
I think you probably get a first-round pick. Yeah, it might, might not be a top 10 pick, but I think you could find a team that's somewhere down there. You want to let's pull up the list. I'm looking at the list right now, and I'll say let's say
who's the
team that will trade. Ooh, why not? Yeah, I think that would be at least a conversation for sure. For the 15th pick.
Yeah.
I think so.
If I'm Indianapolis and Shane Steichen, what he's done to open up the offense, and I got Richardson coming back next year, and you are already a pretty good team even without him last year, what do they look like if they had DK Metcalf?
Yeah, the other one I was going to say, again, the challenge is you're looking at, do you want to trade him in conference? And then sure as heck, you probably don't want to trade him in the division, but Arizona would be the team that I would – Arizona, if I'm Arizona, that's the one I would that would be the guy that I would want. You probably can't do that. How about Pittsburgh at 20?
I mean, I would be very tempted for both of those things. And the reason being, I would like to see the Seahawks get their quarterback of the future. And I don't know who that's going to be or if that's a possibility. I'd love to see them add both Fautano and Murphy. Like, I think they need both of those things more than they need DK Metcalf, especially after they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round last year.
Yeah. I mean, and the money component comes in, so you look at it. I was just pulling up the tag numbers, and so I always think it's interesting when you talk about what positions are valuable, where would you want your money, and all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is wide receiver has become a high paid position. Mm-hmm. So if you can find quality young players on first contracts, that is a huge value. The number's $20.7 million is the tag number. So you hit on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, look what he cost them. It's nothing.
Right.
That's $15 million plus in savings you're getting there. So that's that's where you can take that extra money and split it around, try and help you at the line of scrimmage.
The other big position of need for them is linebacker. We don't know what's going to happen with Bobby or Jordan Brooks. Maybe, Mike McCarthy wants to go out and try to bring in, Mike McDonald rather, wants to try to bring in, Patrick Queen. We'll find out. But is this a good draft for sort of those third-round linebacker types?
Yeah, it's kind of what it is. There's not like a lot of high-end guys at that position this year. So, I mean, it's pretty much the bulk of them you're going to see like third, fourth round. I don't think it's a super, super deep list of them, but that's going to be where they go. That's going to be the range of what you see the linebackers come off the board. We'll have a couple. Adrian Cooper is a really good player from A&M. He'll be gone. But outside of him, maybe Junior Colson from Michigan, you're going to see the bulk of these linebackers. That's the third, fourth round is what it's going to cost you to get a potential starting linebacker in this draft.
Is this a good draft to have a lot of high picks in, or is it an okay draft? Like, where is it in terms of is it a strong? It's top heavy, but is it a strong year for that?
I would say this is a year where if you get to the 4th through 7th, there's years where I'm like, holy crap, like this is unbelievable that these guys, that Amon-Ra St. Brown is still there in the 4th round. Like that type of draft, we've had those type of drafts where it's just, like last year, the tight ends, there's a zillion of them.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it's not like that. So this is the in-between year because of NIL.
Right.
And so many of these guys going back. We only had 50-something juniors when we're used to having double that. So it drops off, man. So this was the year where I was like, if you're picking 4 through 7 and you can spend some of those picks for next year's picks once everything kind of evens back out, I think I'd be more inclined to do that. I think you're going to have to do most of your damage in the first 3 rounds this year.
Yeah. So, and then last thing on that, just to bring it back to the quarterback conversation, if you're a team like Seattle that, maybe you are happy with Geno right now, but you're also kind of looking for that long-term answer. If you don't opt to do it this year in the first 2 rounds, what's available and coming down the pike next year or the year after that? Are those expected to be high-quality quarterback classes?
It's not expected next year based off the early evaluations. Now, I haven't done those. That's from talking to teams. But we say this every year there's 2 or 3 quarterbacks that come out of nowhere that end up, vaulting their way up into the first round. So I'm sure there will be guys that'll take leaps forward in college that maybe we aren't quite as high on right now, but the early look, whereas in years past, you're like, some years like, okay, wow, this next year's got a chance to be really good. Mm-hmm. And there's some excitement there. This next group hasn't generated that much buzz, which I think, could be a reason why we see some movement. And we could see, a record number of quarterbacks, go in the top 10 here. So that's part of the equation for sure.
All right. Well, DJ, I appreciate it. We'll let you go, especially after you did 2 hours of answering dumb questions like this yesterday. But that's the gig, and you love it, and you're great at it, and we appreciate it. Love the insight.